Welcome to the Extreme Lifestyle Living Podcast. I'm your host, Trey, and today's guest is someone very special to me. We talk about emotional intelligence and how becoming more emotionally aware can really benefit your life. We also talk a lot about mental health and many other topics related. I hope you enjoy, and of course, let me know how you like it. Now, welcome, Nicole. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Welcome on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting.
First guest in the studio, the lovely studio, which is dope.
Hopefully first and not the worst, which is the most
Oh, God,
important
no.
thing.
I'm going to be the worst every time we're here. So, brief introductions for anyone that's going to be listening. I know you, and it's actually great that we get to spend some time to actually sit down, actually hang out. I haven't seen you in when? How long?
Oh, geez, it's been probably before the pandemic, I'd say.
Yeah? It would
Maybe during at some point for coaching, but...
No, I don't think so.
No, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Pre-baby.
It's been a while. Yeah. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So, so what's a brief description of who you are as a person?
Okay.
What do you do?
I'm born and bred in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
We're from similar hoods, which is great.
That's true.
On the other side of Dartmouth. So I've been working in the fitness industry for 10 years, which is crazy to think that I'm old enough to be 10 years in the fitness industry, but that's fine. I know. Was an athlete growing up, played hockey, went to university. I started working right away, right out of university. Was very lucky to start with a company that I really enjoyed and worked my way through, probably 5 or 6 different roles now with them. And my current role that I'm doing involves what we're probably going to be talking about today, emotional intelligence coaching. I got certified in 2017, I want to say, maybe 2018. 2018, you were one of my first people, so 2018.
That's dope.
Really enjoy that side of...
I'd bring the mic a little closer.
Really enjoy that part of it. Been doing that, the coaching aspect, for 3 years now. I'm a new mom. I'm sure we'll talk about that as well today.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to be on video. My sister's a fashion designer. She owns her own company, so she's probably going to kill me that I'm wearing Lululemons in this. But
what the hell? I got Lulus on. You're winning.
So sorry, Jen. That's my fault. But no, that's who I am. From Dartmouth. I'm a team player, competitive-minded girl. I'm sure we'll get into all the stuff that you and I have worked through before.
It's funny, like every time you say you're from Dartmouth, and I always think of, do you ever go to the Birch Cove parties?
Well, yeah, of course.
I just remember that's when we'd all hang out. Like my hood, your hood.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
when we'd all unite.
That's when we're all Dartmouth all together.
That's the only
which is
time
great.
we'd all be together. Those parties were fun.
Yeah.
But you played hockey and then jumped into, like, you went to St. FX, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, did you play hockey there as well?
I did, yeah, for 4 years.
And how long? What age did you start playing hockey?
I was kind of late, actually, to the party. I think I was like 10 or 11.
Okay. Yeah, most people started like 6.
Yeah, no, that wasn't me. I did other sports, but I started when I was 10. I started with the boys. There was no girls' league in Dartmouth when I was that young. And then I switched over to girls.
So the girls' leagues here must have been relatively within the last few decades then.
Probably 10, 15 years, yeah. Because if I'm 31... 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago. Oh my God. Yeah, I started with the boys and then I moved over to girls when I was like 14, 15.
That's crazy because if you think about it, how even 15, 20 years ago, there was no female leagues and now there's a lot of female stuff. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting getting changed in closets when the boys were all in the dressing rooms, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
So how do you go from the high level athlete, St. FX, fitness industry, because obviously transferable skills, you easily go from working out to teaching fitness because you have a passion for it.
Yeah.
How do you get to emotional intelligence? How do you spark up? How do you make that transition? How did you know that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I kind of fell into it, to be honest with you. So it was a very hard road. I'm sure a lot of athletes feel this way, but when you are competitive for so long and then you stop it, I find you kind of lose yourself a little bit. You think you only, I only knew hockey, basically. I went to school, I really enjoyed school, did well in school, but I mean, the end of the day, the reason why I went to St. FX was to play hockey. That was my first kind of thing that I did. So when I stopped, lost myself a little bit, didn't know what I was supposed to do, went from competitive training, 7 days a week for 15 years to all of a sudden nothing. Fitness industry was really good for me, actually. It was a good transition because I knew fitness, I knew wellness. I wasn't doing it for myself. I got very out of shape my first year after graduating, but figured myself out at that point. And then, like I said, the emotional intelligence fell into it because the role that I was transitioned into, we were looking from kind of an organizational development perspective of how we could help our mid-level and senior management within the company that we worked for. And we decided, emotional intelligence at that point in 2018, we started the process in 2017. Emotional intelligence was a bit of a buzzword at that point. I don't think people really knew what it was.
I think it still is a buzzword.
It is a buzzword. I think people are getting a little bit better with the definition now, or at least even seeing how it can impact them both personally and professionally, which is exciting.
It makes people think now. When people hear
time.
Emotional intelligence, they're like,
Yeah.
I feel like 5 years ago when we started, like when you heard emotional intelligence, you just assumed like CIA of some sort. Like that's what I thought about, like, a high intelligent officer of some sort, trained person.
Well, it's funny that you say that. I think some people probably think that way, but I also think some people think we all sit in a circle holding hands and sing Kumbaya.
That is true.
I think
it's like
people...
when you say holistic in yoga. It's like I do a lot of mobility in yoga, and people just think I sit with candles and hum.
Yeah, which is not. It is not the case
not
at all.
It's
so a lot bigger of a thought. But anyway, we got certified, and at that point, my mind was blown. When I got certified, I could not believe what we were about to embark through, and I'm just so happy that I had the opportunity to do that.
What part made you kind of like this is it?
Yeah, so the way that we got certified is I had to do my assessment first.
Yeah.
And I worked with one of their coaches, and nothing, it's just so funny when you get your report, nothing's mind blowing. Like I'm not like, you look at your scores and you're like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that made the most sense to me is just being able to hear it from somebody else, and her asking me questions and really making me step back and be in that, self-perception type moment where it's like, okay, what am I actually talking to myself about? Mm-hmm. What dialogue do I actually have with myself? What am I doing? Like, behaviors dictate your actions. So why are my actions going this certain way? And I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
Right? Like, again, the scores that I saw was nothing groundbreaking. I assumed that was how I was going to score.
Yeah.
But then when she was asking me these questions, that's when I was like, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing at all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm basically just going through the motions and hoping good things happen.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. It's like funny because what we talked about before we even got on here was like just seeing it factually there. Because I find like my lowest scores, I've always heard about them. Mm-hmm. I feel like you hear about them like everywhere you go.
Yeah,
like just always like self-respect, like relationships with people, and just like common sense and stuff. And it's funny because like until you get, I find the reason why this worked is because you answered so many questions.
Yeah.
So you knew it wasn't like a 20-minute thing on Google where it's like those back in the day when you're on MSN and you used to do like those 10 questions, you find out who you are, who your best friend's going to be.
I mean, the assessment takes you like 30 minutes. So it's obviously pretty in depth when you're going through it, which I wasn't expecting. Sounds like you weren't expecting either, but
not at all.
Yeah. And then when somebody, that's why I think coaching is so cool, is because somebody from a different perspective starts to question what you're doing. When a lot of times, whether we're really hard on ourselves or we're not, I think sometimes we let things slide a lot more than what we should. Yeah. And I don't know, for me, it was a really good kick in the pants that I was like, okay, why am I making these decisions? Because at the end of the day, one different decision can change your life. And I was kind of just going down the same route.
So it's like the definition of insanity.
Same thing over and over.
But you're trying. And that's the thing I feel like that made this such a good workbook, is that like, it's not saying we weren't trying to change our lives. Like, I remember the first conversation we ever had. We can talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But it was like, I was always the same person, but I was always in shit environments. Mm-hmm. So it's like, even talking about conditioning and stuff, like I was like, I just always remember being confused from like even like a young child after like my troublesome like childhood. Yeah. I remember like ever being like 4 to 6 years old, I was always confused. Yeah. And I remember like, it's just like you think with good intentions, and then you wake up the next day like, are they here? Yeah. And then you're like, well, I didn't fucking do anything. I didn't like physically do anything.
Well, I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I think the thing that you raised that's really cool is your environment. At the end of the day, you couldn't change that. Like when you were 4, 5, 6, like that was your environment, and there was nothing at that point in your life that you could change, right? And I think it's recognizing that there are certain conditions that were brought up in, but I think for you, it was just recognizing once you became an adult and you were able to make decisions on your own, it's like, yeah, that was my background. That's how I grew up, but that doesn't necessarily how it dictates my future. Right?
Yeah, and that was the hardest revelation for me. Yeah. Because going back to your other thing, saying that when you work with a coach and you get that new perspective, it just breaks your reality.
Yeah.
Because you only know what you know. I only know what I know. Like we even talk about growing up in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
I grew up on Pinecrest. And then you grew up in, I don't even know.
Yeah, behind Penhorn Mall.
Yeah. So yeah, Manor Park, right? Is that Manor
Yeah,
Park?
yeah.
Or Creighton Park?
Manor Park.
Yeah, so Manor Park. And then so it's like, we're both Dartmouth. So if we both fly to New York or anywhere else, or people are gonna look at us the exact same.
Yeah.
But then when we linked up and we started like working and stuff like that, like there was nothing similar about us.
Yeah.
Like not one thing besides the fact that we could talk about going to Birch Cove parties, going to Alderney and doing stuff recently. But that's why I love this as well, is because like I came to realize that like I used to self-identify from my childhood.
Yeah.
Because between 17 and 21, you meet everybody.
Yeah.
And nobody prepares you for that.
Yeah.
Especially, you were probably, 18 when you went to St. FX?
Yeah, I would have been 18. Yeah.
Yeah. So 17, you're literally just graduating high school. Mm-hmm. You're pretty much spoon fed by both parents for the most part.
Yeah.
And you got an allowance, essentially.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, sayonara, like, go fucking figure your life out.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, within the first year, you like see a bunch of demons. Mm-hmm. Second year, even worse. And then you just kind of like left. I feel like no one really talks about it. You're kind of left with you self-defining everything, but no one told you that's what you're going to have to do. Yeah. So that's why I just started identifying through my childhood, because it's like everyone looked at me like I was crazy, some of the things I'd say. Mm-hmm. So I would just like, and that's one big thing I realized since COVID, I had to peel those layers back. And that's actually what started was the EQI.
Yeah, it's cool.
Was me, I was like, holy shit, like I'm really like, I started paying attention to how I talk.
Yeah.
And I would be, I would like try to say a definition and I would just be explaining.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing?
Well, you know what's funny that you say that is because when we first met, and I'm only going to let you tell what you want to tell at a
honestly,
assessment.
you go, I'm throwing everything over.
I mean, you and I worked together for years even before we started this, so we had a good relationship. But I remember when we started this, you were really quiet when we were going through this assessment, and your first meeting with me, I was like, oh God, he's not liking this. Like, I don't think he's enjoying this at all. He's not getting anything of it. And then there's some managers who, you know, we do it with and never talk to again, because they're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to take this with me and do my own thing. And they probably don't, which is fine. That's their own thing. But you wrote me right away. Yeah. Like right away. And you were like, can we set up another meeting? Met up again. You're still quiet.
Just to pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about myself, not from that moment, but it's funny because you're about to go on about how I literally like probably reached out to you within 12 hours. Yep. Very detailed. Yeah. Very detailed. Like I'm very fucking detailed. Yeah. Lengthy email or text. Yeah. But then it's crazy because when we were sitting there, you probably thought I wanted to kill you or something.
100%. Yeah.
And that's like, to me, that's the most mind-blowing thing for me, because even talking to Emma about that, we actually talked about that the other day, when two of our friends were like, yo, like, is Trey trying to kill you tonight? Yeah. And it was like, what do you mean? It was just like, because I was, the way I was staring at her. Yeah. But I didn't know that. I'm so far in my head trying to understand what we're talking about and just trying to like let it resonate. Yeah. Let it change me, because I know I'm submissive to you. You're the coach. I'm the client. Like I can't be ignorant. Yeah. And I just remember I didn't realize the physical aspect. Yeah. And that's actually, like, I'll talk about that later, but that's actually how my whole journey is going. Mm-hmm. I'm manipulating the world with my physical. Yeah. And mental is completely different. Well,
that's it. Once you wrote me, I was like, okay, he got a lot out of it, because yes, you were very detailed in your thing. You wanted to follow up, but you were probably one of the hardest people that I coached, just because initially I didn't know what you were getting out of it. I thought you were getting a lot out of it, which was great, but I also didn't know at the same time. But then when we continued to meet up, I mean, geez, you did years going through this with me, which was awesome. A lot of people don't take advantage of that, but
we're still talking about it right now.
I mean, we're still talking about it right now, and that's not my coaching. That's you taking advantage of something that was really beneficial for you. But yeah, I didn't think you liked it at first, and then obviously we've seen a big change for you.
I emailed these guys.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Within the last 6 months, they never got back to me.
Oh, well, I can take that away for you.
Because I want to know, like, I want to do it again. Mm-hmm. I want to retest. I want to know I know you said it was expensive and all this other stuff, but I would just want to know for future reference, like, if I have a company. Yeah. I would fucking, like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, but, this started it. That's why I'm excited.
So maybe if it's okay, I'll define what that is, just for people who are wondering what we're talking about.
Probably should.
So it's called an emotional EQI assessment, so emotional quotient assessment, which scores you on your emotional intelligence competencies. It's 138 questions that you have to answer about yourself, and it's all behavioral questions. So almost think of it like 138 behavioral interview questions that you're going through, which is really tough.
Yeah.
But you got to be really honest with how you're scoring yourself as well, so that you can get a good depiction of how you relate in we call them 15 subscales, but really it's just 15 competencies is what maybe we'll use for the words, but and how you score on them. And I think for people that don't know what emotional intelligence is, or have heard the word but they don't really get it, emotional intelligence is how you self-regulate, self-perceive yourself to be able to express yourself, to then build relationships and show up to the world around you, if that makes sense.
That's powerful.
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people, and even that might sound a little hokey for some people. Some people like Tony Robbins, some people don't.
If that sounds hokey for anybody, I think they honestly should just take a step back and read that, because that wasn't hokey at all.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Robbins calls it emotional fitness, which I completely agree with.
100%.
Some people like Tony Robbins, some people don't, but it's fitness. It's discipline in the head at the end of the day, which is really, really difficult. And to be able to self-regulate, self-perceive, have confidence in yourself to be able to not only show up the way that you want to, but show up the way that you think you're showing up so other people perceive you in the same light. Because some people, it doesn't always match up with how they think they're showing up versus how they're actually showing up. So it's a really, really cool assessment. You then meet with a coach, you go through the debrief, you go through your scores, and then at that point, the world's kind of your oyster, whether you want to meet with the coach consistently or you think you can do it on your own. Yeah. It can really have a big value, personally or professionally, however you want to use it.
No, I literally couldn't agree more, and I'm excited. I want you to dive in as deep as you want to, because whatever gives the best examples of my scores for everybody else, I really don't care, and that's why I said, this not the way you explained is not hoaxy or any weird way for someone to kind of shut it down. Yeah. My whole premise behind all of this was you said 2017 we did this?
I got certified in 2017, so you would have been 2018.
Yeah, so 2018, so we're going on let's say 3 years. And I've been soul searching since I started this.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was always soul searching before, but this is what gave me. It's funny because one of my highest scores is reality testing and realism, and this gave me realism.
Yeah.
This was factional stuff, and I was like, it's right.
Yeah.
It's about me. I can't, it's like being caught red-handed. It's it's me.
Yeah.
So I think, the reason why I'm saying that is because for anyone listening, I was a very insecure kid my entire life. And that's why I even said earlier about me tricking everyone with my physical. Yeah. Because I was up on stage winning a show. Yeah. I thought I looked like absolute dog shit, and I hated my life. Yeah. And it's funny with how much more out of my life I got through society, just based on how I looked. So that's why I'm saying it. So for people, I've worked very hard to be confident to say what I say. Yeah. So I know for a fact the way you explain that is not hoaxy at all. And if anybody is listening that thinks it's hoaxy or whatever it is, they literally just have something they don't want to confront.
Yeah, and I mean, you can Google and literally put in emotional intelligence tests for free. I'm sure there's a bunch that come up, which is fine. I mean, if that's a way that people step into it, I think that's great. Anytime that you can start to step into that realm, I think is amazing. This is obviously a lot more in depth. There is a really good YouTube video, though, by Travis Bradbury. He's kind of one of the main pioneers of emotional intelligence, and he talks about kind of foundational work that you can do to start harnessing your emotional intelligence. And it's really, really basic, really, really basic. He talks about sleep, stress, caffeine, and alcohol, and just being really smart about those 4 things, because even those can really, really dictate, because again, your emotions dictate your actions. So just making sure that you're kind of in a grounded place to begin with, so that, you didn't have 15 cups of coffee and all of a sudden you don't understand why you're having a bad conversation with an employee, right? Or you slept 2 hours and you just don't understand why you're crying in the middle of a commercial, right? So really, really good one if people want to YouTube that just to get started.
No, I think anything with emotional intelligence is great. That's why I wanted to hone in on the fact that your definition was spot on.
So what, if I can ask you for a second, little change of podcast, what was the score that kind of stood out to you? I mean, I know what we've worked on, but why do you think it was such a game changer?
Well, my highest one was stress tolerance. Yeah. So, and that's crazy because I feel like I take the burden of the world on all the time. I've always done that. Anyone that's my close friend group, Emma, my family, my brothers, my mom, I've always taken the world on for them. Yeah. I've always kind of threw myself under the bus to I'll suffer in silence so they can be happy. I was just always like that. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I'm the oldest but stress tolerance, that just stuck out because I was like, I'm always stressed. And that actually led into me finding out I was just a high functioning anxiety person. And like, even recently I'm going through that a lot, realizing I was like, oh, it cured my anxiety. I was like, I'm not anxious. I don't get anxious anymore.
Yeah.
But then I started noticing more things about just high functioning, just like that. But I'd say stress tolerance with being the highest was like, it wasn't shocking. I had a revelation where I was like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I was like, I understand that. The shocking one was, I think it was my lowest, or my second lowest, was self-regard.
So confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the lowest. Now we can even go into scores.
Well, I mean, yeah. It's all coming back to me now.
Oh yeah.
So why was that one? And it doesn't even have to be necessarily your lowest score, but it's maybe one that's the most out of balance for you. But why was that one so key?
Which one? Stress tolerance or self-regard?
Self-regard.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, the physical. I looked better than everybody at the time.
You were hiding.
I'm talking about like face down. I'm not talking about arrogancy and be like,
yeah.
best. I'm talking about physical. So anyone listening or doesn't watch the video don't think I'm just like, what the fuck's this guy doing?
Yeah.
But no, like just straight up body. I'm talking about gym, fitness, body fat percentage, and just aesthetics, looking good. I had it all.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I started at the Sportsplex, and I just remember I just wanted a bicep vein. Fast forward 3-4 years, a couple issues here and there, and I was on stage winning. So I did everything, statistically speaking, to become a confident person.
Yeah.
I grew my hair out. I got a man bun. I stood out.
Yeah.
I had abs that I was walking around. I was 185 pounds. I won a show.
Yeah.
I was wearing cutoffs. So I did everything that if you would have read a book as a quote-unquote man,
yeah,
this is how you're a man, this is how you're confident.
Yeah.
I did it all.
Yeah.
But when I won the show, nothing changed. And the fucked up part about that is I always think about that question that you asked me when we were doing this, because the great thing about this, and I swear, I think the only reason why this works so well for me is because I really trust you. And I don't trust fucking nobody.
Yeah.
So I honestly think that's what it is. And that's why I even joked about all the time. I'm like, I always overburden you guys with shit.
Yeah.
Because you're like, God only knows what's going to come out of Trey's mouth, especially at events drinking. Like, you don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. But that, I remember you were like, I wrote down, you're like, what's something that you will measure your success by?
Yeah.
And I said, a BMW. And you were like, well, what's a BMW going to do?
Yeah.
And I remember that's how I felt with winning ECC. Was like, it's God's gift to the world if I win this thing.
Yeah.
It's God's gift to the world if I get this BMW.
Yeah.
And I won. And I remember walking backstage and I had like overwhelming emotions of feeling great for winning.
Yeah.
But then you wake up the next day and you're the exact same.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started like really, I was like, so everything I'm like, so you wake up, going back to our first conversation about like, you wake up and like, today I'm going to be great.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you wake up, not great.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And that was the first revelation that I had, that I was like, oh shit, like I'm actually not doing what I think I should be doing. I actually I am arrogant. I'm not listening to some people around me.
Yeah.
My ego is a little bit too high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my self-doubts and my insecurities are blinding me in other aspects. And that's when I really had to, and thankfully I trusted the fuck out of you, because if this was anyone else, I would have just said, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like the first one would have been accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, because I probably did feel like fucking killing you at the time. I was like,
Yeah.
who are you to tell me?
Yeah.
But no, like, and so that's why self-regard like really stood out to me, was because like physically I did everything because I never played sports.
Yeah.
That's why I love when people talk about their sports, and like I never played it. I was a glorified water boy.
Yeah.
I was always at every event, every practice, but just never played.
Yeah.
So I took the physical as a big symbol. And then like even now I'm still using it as a symbol. And then I completely throw people off when I'm just like, hey, how's your mental health? Did you cry today? And they're like, what? I'm like, I cried yesterday.
Yeah.
And they're like, you have abs and veins throughout your entire arms and you're telling me you're crying?
Yeah.
So I love it. It breaks people's brains. But yeah, self-regard being the lowest. I think the only one that was lower than that was flexibility. Was adapting emotions and thoughts and behaviors. And I fucking hate change.
Yeah. Not flexibility like your hamstrings. Flexibility like change.
Those aren't hip flexibility.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really, really tough. It's funny that you say that. Stress tolerance is one of my highest scores as well, which for me is actually a double-edged sword, because I don't get very high or very low. And I'm sure the closest people around me really hate that, because they don't know if I'm super happy or super sad or whatever. Yeah. I'm very even keel, which I'm sure in some things, in, having a kid and stuff, it's going to be great. But It's very much a double-edged sword for me, though, at the same time, because I do struggle with talking about how I'm feeling. I think I'm getting better at it. Like, I'm really, really trying, but I'm a slow, like, my emotions don't come at me quickly. So to tell people maybe a little bit more backstory as well, is going through this assessment, we really believe that, you know, you see or hear something, you tell yourself a snap story that brings on an emotion. That emotion dictates your behavior, right? So, you know, very, very common example that we use in our coaching and our workshops is, you know, one of your employees is late for work, and immediately you go to this person's lazy, they slept in, what an a-hole type thing. Yeah. When really they could have got an offender bender, or you know, they got a phone call that somebody in their house is sick, or something bad happened. And then just because our dialogue changed, that means an emotion changed, which means we're going to act in a different manner. And so for me, I think really long for some reason. I don't know why. I just think really long, which means my emotions take a long time to fester. And by the time that they fester, it's probably not that high. It's probably not that low. So for me, it's hard to get out what I'm trying to say. And that was why this was such a paramount thing for me, is because I recognized my stress tolerances. So I also got certified when my mom was sick. So I think that made such a difference for me going through that process as well, of being able to tell my husband at the time, you know, or sorry, my boyfriend at the time, he's now my husband, exactly how I was feeling, because normally I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Congrats on getting married.
Oh, thank you. It's been 2 years now. We're happily married. We have a baby, which is exciting. But it was a game changer for me, and I think it couldn't have come at a better time for me either. Noticing that my stress tolerance is very high, recognizing that yes, it's a strength, but at the same time, it does hinder me being able to communicate how I'm feeling, especially to the people that are closest to me.
Yeah, I honestly like resonate a lot with that, because your stress tolerance is high because you take on more than everyone else. Usually.
I do take on a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I find, like, because that's why I agree, because even my recent interviews for another job I was looking at was what's your biggest downfall? Because it's a very laid back interview, like with who I work with now and stuff. It was very chill, so it was dope. But I was like, honestly, I was like, I my stress tolerance is great. I love taking on a lot of things. I said, but you have to check on me to make sure I'm not getting overwhelmed, because that's the biggest thing with my stress tolerance, is like, because I agree, like, I think that we take on more than average. So that's why it takes longer than average to go through it, because we don't want to act irrational. And I think there's things in our past that maybe have happened that are just snapshots that maybe we don't have accurate memories of, that like shut you down really quickly, that hurt
100%.
your feelings. So now you, like, I think of the 72-hour rule. Yeah. If something happens on a Monday, I'm not going to talk about it until like Wednesday or Wednesday night, because I am an aggressive person. I am an emotional person. I do go off the rocker, and I've ruined a lot of things doing that way. So I know, like, time, I have patience tattooed on me, and I know time is the only thing I feel like you need to actually pay attention to, because it's one aspect you can't control in your life. So when you just like dedicate time to like let things blow over, and like, almost like the self-love aspect where you just give yourself time, your body will kind of tell you what you need.
Well, I think that's a really it's an awesome point, and I think people don't give themselves enough time for the learning to catch up. Like emotions, for people to recognize with emotional intelligence, like when you are put in a situation where your emotions start to fire, we are wired back in the day to see a line and have to run the other way. Like, that's just the way that it
fight, or go through that line.
Or go through that. Like, we're fight, flight, or freeze. That's all that happens when we get emotions that overtake our brain. Literally, like, if somebody had a system, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what they would put on us, but if we get very emotionally driven, our blood literally goes out of our brain, and we will only act on our emotion. So people don't give themselves enough time to be like, holy crap, it's either about to, if you can get really good at emotional intelligence, you recognize when you're about to blow up. Like, okay, my ears are hot, or I don't know. Some people feel it in a physical manifestation. Some people notice it with whatever dialogue it is.
For how I am now,
which is huge. A lot of people can't do that. It's not. It's too late. And then the three main things that people do is either fight, they flight, or they freeze. Yeah. And then they are in a tough conversation with their partner where they say things that they don't want to, or they get so far into it that they both yell at each other for an hour, and then neither one of them knows they even said, because their emotions were so high. Yeah. But for a lot of people, like you said, it's being able to stop. For you, if it's 72 hours, that's great. But I even recommend if people can count to 10 in their head, that will at least give them 10 seconds that maybe the blood will start pouring back into their brain. It's not always the case. And it's really, really hard to stop for 10 seconds, especially when you're emotionally driven or passionate about what you're talking about. But if you can just give yourself 10 seconds, it could make a world of difference.
Something I actually said, because I agree, like that, it's the stopping of time what changes it all.
Yeah.
When you give yourself that break, that's the only thing you need to figure out how to do for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what gives you the revelation. But I remember specifically you saying that to me.
Yeah.
Take 10 seconds. And I even get mad now thinking about it. All I can think about in the back.
It's frustrating.
All I can think about in the back of my head is go fuck yourself. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean 10 seconds? Like, no.
Yeah.
But what I started doing that I found to help is we're very ignorant as humans.
Oh, yeah.
We think we know everything.
Yeah.
Because I only know what I know. You only know what you know. So
Yeah.
I started noticing when you tell me to count to 10, I like feel like it's not worth my time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's not good enough. Mm-hmm. But when you tell me to take 3 deep breaths, which if you do it properly, takes 10 seconds.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll do it.
Yeah. Whatever works.
And that's what I found for anyone listening. Like, it's crazy because you telling me to take 10 seconds versus me telling you to take 3 deep breaths is the exact fucking same thing. The same outcome for your physiological body and your mental is the exact same premise.
Yeah.
And like that's when I really started learning like individualism.
Yeah.
If that's the thing where it's like because like me being alone my whole life, I tried to, and not having a big sense of family and not playing sports with a camaraderie, I feel like I always tried to pair with people, which is why now I'm confident and I tell people to go fuck themselves. Because like when I started the gym and I started doing things in the community, I was always the first person to ask people for help. I was like, hey, do you need help? I'll help you.
Yeah.
But all the time, like, I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm not going to blame people, but a lot of people didn't want to have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
But I noticed that just, like, I don't even really know where I was going with that one. Just that whole aspect of just giving yourself that time is what helps you create everything we're talking about right now.
Yeah, and I think for some people, if they're finding, and listen, when we're just talking about this right now, it is a lot harder said than done to stop yourself because we are in a age of overdrive all of the time. If you want to know anything, I mean, geez, just set up your computer. I Googled in 10 seconds. We know
I got
what
my
to
phone.
do.
Yeah, we have like we got like if we want to Google 17 different things right now, we can do it within 3 minutes.
So I think for people, it's really difficult because we're in an age of instant gratification, instant knowing, instant everything.
Yeah.
So if people are struggling with the 10 seconds or the 3 breaths, whatever it might be, I actually recommend like start with just journaling, and it doesn't need to be this is how I feel today.
No.
This is what it doesn't need to be that. It can simply like work your way backwards. Maybe just start with your actions. So okay, what did I do today? What things happened? Maybe some things that I did or said that I didn't think was good. What are some things that I did that I thought was great? Start with your actions. Okay, let's work your way back. Do that for a couple days. Work your way back. We know emotions dictate actions. So, okay, what emotions did I feel today? Start to write those down. Give yourself a couple days doing that. Okay, then work yourself back even further. What were the stories? What's the dialogue? What was the narrative that I had in the run of a day? Because then you can really start seeing like, Jesus, I speak terribly to myself. That is what is driving my emotions. Or I'm a super pessimistic person. The moment something happens, I'm recognizing I'm always going to the negative, always, which dictates maybe an emotion that's a bit stronger. And I don't want to say negative or positive emotions because emotions are emotions at the end of the day, but maybe that's why you're acting the way or making decisions the way that you don't want to do it is because it's right from the stem. It's right from the dialogue that you're having with yourself because that's changing the emotion or the state that you're in, which then again changes your actions, which is really, really tough.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's why this is so great is because it gives you your first foot.
It gives you your first foot.
It gives you your first foot forward in your life. And I think the only other thing that I would want to pair with that is just the only thing that I think would go great with this is if there's any questions, not even just with this specifically, or if there's anything that you could take onto this to make it even 10 times better. Yeah. Is defining out how you were conditioned as a child.
Yeah, I am certified in life coaching as well, which talks about conditioning. That's a big one. I'm with you. I agree with you. That's a one that I think I would need to get a lot more education behind.
It's hard, I think that's why I do so great with that conversation.
But that's why this is what you do.
Yeah, like I think that's why I do so great is because this self-regard is the biggest one on this thing that changed not just my life, but it changed Emma's life. It changed my mom's life, my grandmother's life, my grandfather's, both my brothers, every single one of my friends. It changed their life because I realized, And this is why I have such a big fire to change the communities. And I have big aspirations that are going to come out. And this literally is alone is why I'm doing it, is that I used to blame my mom for everything.
Yeah.
And I not really blame her for much because like I didn't really know her as well as in my young childhood. But I used to put a lot of blame on just things. And that's when you can't understand things, that's when you get angry. And then that's when I just, like, as a young age, I started creating that tank of anger, like always anger. But the self-regard, I felt like I was spinning my tires in snow, in quicksand, in anything negative. You can even hear it in my voice for like 3 fucking years. And it wasn't until I realized I had to put my ego aside. I just let go of stuff. I just had to let go of things that were just unexplainable.
Yeah. I think the cool thing about self-regard, I've said confidence behind it a couple times, but I don't think that's a fair definition. It's getting to a point that you know who you are, which is really, really tough. It's being able to...
Which is confidence.
It is confidence, but it's being able to define, these are my strengths. I'm gonna harness them because these are my strengths, and the older you get, you might as well continue to go on your strengths because that's what's going to help you. But you do need to recognize your weaknesses too, because a lot of people I find when they have so low self-regard, the confidence aspect is they know that they're weak in some areas, but because they struggle with that, you know, the moment something ticks them or somebody makes fun of that area, they can't laugh it off, right? Like they know it's a weakness, but oh God, now you know it's a weakness, so now I'm up shit's creek here.
Yeah.
Versus no, like I can't bake. If any of my friends are watching this, they know I cannot bake. I'm going away with my girlfriends this weekend. First time I've ever been away from a child.
Ooh, that's
and they're all baking something. I said, guys, I'm not baking. I can't bake. We all know it. It's fine. But it takes a long time. I know that's a silly example, but like just knowing some people are good at presenting, some people are not. Can you work on your presentation skills? Absolutely. But sometimes it just comes a little bit more naturally to people. Yeah. So I think it's just this, you know, it's your 20s. It's figuring out who you are and then being okay with what your weaknesses are and being okay with what your strengths are. Is that a fly?
Yeah, it is. I don't know where that came from. But no, I completely agree. And that's kind of like my biggest one learning about it was self-love, because being adopted to my grandmother, it wasn't easy. And I won't go on about it, but I realized that nobody in my entire family, a day in their life, don't even know what it's like to be hugged and say, hey, I love you. And that's when it changed, and that's when the whole weight of the world kind of left. Yeah. I was like, everything I've been through as a child, like the negativity, like beatings and all this stuff, was like, it's not their fault. Like, yeah, I can blame them and stuff, but like, if they were beat. So like, what the fuck am I gonna say? You know what I mean? Like, monkey see, monkey do. And like my mom, like, it's funny because, like, not to go too deep down it, but, like, obviously everyone, like, that goes through a deep depression battles, like, is it worth it being here? Type conversation. And I remember, like, not for a fucking doubt, just based on my mom. Like, I just, like, knew if I went through what I went through, and my mom did too, and she left at a young age, then I was like, and she's still here. She kept all the boys together, like, and, like, we go there, have dinners and stuff, which is very hard for, like, we have those conversations, right? Like, that's even why, like, you had a strong relationship with your mother. Yeah. Mine was, like, non-existent. Yeah. So lots to learn. Like, we learned a lot from each other from that aspect of it. But that's when I really started realizing that not even just my family, but it bled into the community. Yeah. And that's...
It's all the people around you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when that's when I started realizing I started breaking people. Was, like someone, like, going back to what you're saying about the emotional aspect, there's 2 parts I want to say about it. One, I'll say more as a man just because I'm a man. You can speak for females, but... Guys are very, they going back to the physical, guys try to put all their eggs in one basket in terms of the physical and the arrogance and the ego. Yeah. I find most men, I should say. Yeah. And that's why a lot of guys are narcissistic. And it's not their fault. Like, there's a lot of, because no one's hugged and say, hey, like, how are you doing? Yeah. And I find, like, one thing about what you said about the emotional intelligence and that you got to understand your flaws is us as men is guys want to fight all the time. They want to get physical. Yeah. Yeah. Because talking about it is hard. Yeah. But most families talked about it. But if you don't understand your flaws, and as a man, and you are aggressive and you're up to fight, you can be exposed at any time. But once you don't understand your flaw as a man, or like how you, like, if you don't understand your vulnerabilities, and if you don't even admit you have a vulnerability, you're exposed. And to lead on to that, which is what I love the most, is that most guys will learn enough emotional intelligence about themselves to ruin other men's days because they're insecure. But the second thing that I want to say about that, I love it. And I actually did this to a guy the other day. And he came into the shop. He's talking to me. And I was like, how are you doing? And like, he just looked at me. He goes, nah, I haven't been going to the gym. I have, like, I'm just taking a break. I'm just, like, losing a little bit of muscle. I just laughed at him. I was like, I don't give a fuck about the gym. Like, I was like, how's your mental health? Like, how's your mental doing? You don't look too good today.
Yeah.
And he just looks at me and he takes a break. He doesn't know what to say. Because one, he came in on his vulnerability, admitted it. I could have exposed him and been like, yeah, man, I'm in the gym. I'm doing these macros. I'm eating this, doing this. And I could have made him feel like shit. Make myself feel good. But instead, I was like, that's what I mean about the self-regard, that as men, I think there's a lot of men that haven't felt love as well.
100%.
Just because, like, for decades and centuries, just based on the hoorah, be bad.
Yeah.
And I just think that's fucking insane because it's stupid.
Yeah, well, I have a son now. I'm really I wanted a little boy.
What's his name again?
His name's Ben. Benjamin.
What's up, Ben?
Ben is awesome.
Benjamin? Is it short for Benjamin?
Benjamin, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, I think...
Sorry, I met a Mark the other day, and it's not short for Marcus. So that's why I was pretty rattled at that.
Imagine I said something really odd. Like, I don't even know. Anyway, Benjamin, yeah, he's awesome. He's 9 months now. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to raise a little boy because I think we, you know, my husband's gone through these assessments as well, so he has a great knowledge of emotional intelligence. We're really lucky that we both do. But just being able to talk to him and ask him how he's feeling, and ask him like, tell me, try and articulate how you were feeling versus just like, suck it up, little fella. You know what I mean? Like, be a big boy. And listen, I'm sure I'm going to say stuff like that. Like, that's inevitable.
Yeah. You're crying, you bump your knee for the third time. It's like, all right, let's go.
Yeah. Like, come on, pick it up type thing. But yeah, I'm excited to also have those conversations for him to just be, you know, a person that can express how he's feeling, which I think is totally fine. And yeah, I think, you know, I don't want to get too far out of the field here. I know. But I think so many people, like, from a woman's perspective, going through this, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. Like, I
agree.
Who cares if you're a woman is what I'm trying to say. Like, I am surrounded, my sister's a business owner. My 4 best girlfriends who I'm with all of the time have phenomenal careers. They're all confident women. I just feel like women have a lot of imposter syndrome and like, oh, you know, am I stepping a little bit too far here? And all I want to say to that is, fuck it. Like, who cares if you're a woman? And I think I struggled with this, and it wasn't the female aspect because I was lucky I worked in a more female-driven company. But I was always worried about my age because I was a very young person in the positions that I was in.
Yeah, I understand. I feel that too.
I felt very lucky and very, very fortunate. But I always was like, you know what, maybe when I'm 25, I'm going to feel a bit more confident in this role when I was 23, or maybe when I'm 27, or maybe when I'm 30. But I've started to realize it's like, screw it. Who cares if you're female? Who cares if you're young? Just, if you can do it, do it. Like, just try and get those narratives out of your head that, you know, or if I'm a guy that I've never been able to speak my emotions before, just get it out of your head. Like, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. It's changing the narrative to be like, just because I'm a woman, I can't do this. No, I don't. I don't think you can do that. Like, you can do whatever you want as long as you put your mind to it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's the epiphany of the world, if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah.
But I find as a man, like, let's go back 100 years, let's say, and females were doing virtually almost nothing. And then you see like a guy that has never been asked how his emotions were.
Yeah.
And you think each dad is more like, you wake up, you kill, you go home.
Yeah.
And like, there's even parts where like, they're like, you have several wives. So if you don't have, you're not a man type shit.
Yeah.
And you just think like years and years you have that oppression. And then females always being locked into cages. And like, da-da-da-da. So it's like, I feel like now with like how COVID is really exposing mental health, there's guys that are just committing suicide because who fucking helps? Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, and the same with females being like, should I do this? Should I do that? Yeah. And I feel like it's right now, during this time right now, I feel like this is when that layer is being peeled back and being like completely reversed. Yeah. Because I'm confident that one person's going to listen. They might say, fuck it, tomorrow I'm doing it. Do it. And it's like I said that, it's funny because like when I started openly admitting that I have 6 to 8 abs. Yeah. I cry 4 times a week. Yeah. They're like, hold the fuck up. Yeah. You cry 4 times? I was like, yes. I was like, go home at night. Yeah. You put that shower on. Yeah. Burn your shit out of your body. Yeah. And fucking bawl your eyes out. I get out of that as red as a fucking candle.
Well, when I thought it was funny. The reason why I say this is because I found when I got pregnant, I felt like I paused. Like I was like, I will worry about this stuff when I'm pregnant, after I have my baby, back to work type thing. And I had...
You got exposed by yourself.
Yeah, I got exposed by myself. And my old manager Because I remember I being like, you know what, we'll talk about, me taking on more or whatever it might be at that time. When I was 3 months pregnant or something when I told her, and she was like, listen, we can. The most important thing is you feel fine. Like the moment you don't feel good, you're taking a step back. Like you and the health of your baby is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But she's just like, why are you putting it off? Like your life just doesn't stop. Like, yeah, back in, again, years ago, and this is only a recent phenomenon because women back in the day, our thing was, childbearing, having kids, being at home. And it's only been recently that we've started to transition and really being
100%.
able to have careers, which is amazing.
I love it.
But yeah, she was like, listen, you absolutely can take it easy right now if that's the most important thing to you. But she's like, when I hired you, I knew you were a young female. I knew there was probably a good chance that you were going to get pregnant. That didn't stop me from hiring you because I thought you were going to be a great person to work with. And it just made me realize, like, yeah, getting pregnant, having a kid, it's important. Like my focus right now is all about him, but that doesn't mean I can't be excited to work again. You know what I mean? Like, I think, one thing I'll say with that is, listen, you don't need to be in a relationship to make it in life. Like you can be single for your whole life if you want to.
You can be.
I think the really cool thing about finding somebody, and I can speak to this with my husband because we were best friends before, when you find a partnership, it's really, really cool because I know for me, I'm as invested into my goals as I am about his, because I think he's amazing and I think he is so creative and I think he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And is like, I know my goals are as important to him as his goals. Like, I'm not trying to put him above me or me above him. We're a partnership.
Yeah.
And I think what we can accomplish together is really, really exciting. And I think it is. The one thing about motherhood, though, that I'll say is, and I said this when I graduated university, is you lose yourself. You big time lose yourself. Don't even talk to me about the hormones that get thrown into there where you lose yourself anyway.
I completely understand.
You go through something that you finally figured out who you are, and then all of a sudden you get this person thrown into the mix that now they can't do anything without you.
Yeah.
This kid cannot do anything without me. I have to do everything for it or my husband. And it really throws you.
Yeah.
I feel like, and my son was born prematurely. We were in the NICU for 3 weeks, which is really difficult during a pandemic.
Yeah.
But
first baby. So
first baby. Like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing anyway. Yeah. But you lose yourself.
You probably started to like going down that negative spirals of everything.
Oh, totally. And you think you're doing everything wrong because they don't sleep or they're throwing up everywhere, or like, I don't know, you just it's a very cool thing, motherhood, but it's really hard because you question everything that you're doing. And the age of social media too, like you go on Instagram and you see these women that are posting really, really great pictures of their kids, and like they're 3 weeks old and they slept through the night, and you're dying here, and you're just like, what am I doing wrong? But you can't do that. Like, it's so you can't compare yourself to other people because you go down such a slippery slope that what you're going through, nobody else is going through, and you just can't do that.
That's why I love just saying, you only know what you know.
You only know what you know.
And I only know what I know. And that's why I love that quote, because once I just honed that in, I just understood everything like with a different light. Yeah. Like even like me and you could like have the same exact lives, and you're still gonna look at shit differently. Yeah, totally. Because like even as simple as every time you use the washroom and look in the mirror, you're by yourself. That's a revelation by yourself. Whether you choose, you can even meditate. You look at yourself, take 2 or 3 deep breaths, and that's even like a revelation or a moment just by yourself. You could have several of those a day without anyone knowing. Yeah. And that's kind of going back to what you said about Instagram. Like, you get home, you bring Ben home, and then you go on Instagram and 3 people had photo shoots with their kids. Yeah. And you just look at Ben, you're like, do I even give a shit? Yeah. You know, like, do I even care? But like, what? You start going through these revelations, but it's marketing. Yeah. They're marketing as if they're these phenomenal mothers. And I'm not saying they're not. Yeah. But that's what I started realizing, because since I'm such a solid person, like my words, my bond, I love that, is that like we do get caught up in creating all these stories on social medias, watching everybody. I notice I'm at my worst when I'm on Instagram a lot. It is scary, because we've talked about how your narratives create your emotions and your emotions create your actions, but all of a sudden you're now looking at other people's narratives, and that's creating emotions in you that it shouldn't be creating emotions in you, but it is, which then dictates your actions, what might be you spiral, or you got to be really, really careful. If you're somebody that does get
And I think it's just the amount of time that you're on it too. If I'm on it for like 5-10 minutes a day, it doesn't really do anything for me. But if I'm on there like 30, 45, 60 minutes a day, probably shouldn't be doing that. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like with this, you can't be exposing yourself to that stuff if you're working on you, because your narratives and your self-talk will change based on what you're seeing from other people. And I think if you're noticing that, you got to shut it down. Like if you're focusing on you, just focus on you for a little bit. Like it's people forget to focus on themselves. And I think if you can even dictate a week, like give yourself a week that you're just off everything and you just talk to yourself and you write down your thoughts and you journal and you exercise and you figure it out. Like just give yourself a week sometimes, because you might really make a change.
No, like it's funny. I made a post the other day, and because right now, what is it? November 10th right now. Well, I don't know when I'll post this, but November 10th, we have less than 2 months before it's January. And everyone is already saying, like, I'll do that next year. Yeah. I'll do that next year. Do this next year. Do this next year. And I made a post, and it was just because it's real. And it's like, when I started this journey, it was January 4th, 2021. I had a written up plan. I followed it. Everything's in that, like those 4 cubicles there. And like I've literally written every single thing I'm doing right now. I've written it up. Yeah. I'm just following my plan. And where was I going with that? I have no clue where I was going with that. I have literally no clue.
We've done that a couple times.
Because I was just looking at the self-regard, but I have no clue where I was going with that.
That's all right. We've done that a couple times at this point.
Good tangents. Oh, this is what I was going to say. To go back to the partnership about you saying if you can give yourself a week of self-love. Yeah. In my post that I was saying is, when I started in January 4th, right now it's November 10th. Yeah. You can hate yourself today and literally love yourself by January. And I think people aren't taking the severity and the magnitude of that, because they're just like, January, we'll throw it in. Because it's a society thing. And society is a big misery loves company. But I mean, I do want to jump into like my 3 lowest EQI and my 3 highest, and we can just talk about those, because I know a lot of people are going to learn. I'll throw myself under the bus, say whatever the fuck you want to say. Yeah. Because that's my whole journey I'm doing right now is just straight up me using myself as an example. And that's what I realized. It's misery loves company. But I found when you looked at the most of society, like we could even go political and talk about the fear factors that are going on, but we won't. Yeah. It's like most of somebody, like everyone's going to tell you no. It's just the way that everyone's programmed. Yeah. Because it's just manipulation. But what I realized was, I forget where I was going with that, but I was trying to go in towards about like when you were given a partnership about John. Yeah. Because what if you can allocate yourself, like you said, a week, even like fucking 10 seconds a day. Yeah. I told Emma when we first started dating, because it was the first 2 years of rocky. And I'll take most of that ownership. Like majority of that ownership for sure. Like she was young, I was young, and like life is life. But I was an asshole, that's for sure. Like behind closed doors, for sure. And that God fucking loved her heart, and she knows I feel indebted for that. And I know I don't need to feel indebted, but going back to what I was saying about you give 1 week to prove to yourself that you're worth it. Yeah. Then you become your best self. And I don't think you'll ever find, like John, you don't find your partner until you find your best self. Yeah, agreed. And I think it's one of those things that when you go out looking for it, you won't find it. But if you don't look for it, you get it. Yeah. And with Emma, like, because you can even ask Emma, and I'm encouraged. I'm like, she is probably the specialist person I've ever met. And she'll probably find that out by listening to this. Yeah. Which is the most fucked up part. And how many times without giving examples, that I was like, I don't know, like this commitment shit's fucking me up. Because I never had it before, right? Yeah, and and she knows that. God love her heart for staying around. And we have not stopped since that first day we hung up. Yeah. Like literally the same amount of I don't have the same amount. I have a lot more understanding of my emotions now. But my emotions that I feel are the exact same that I felt the very first day, which is insane to me, because that's when I really started digging into like self-regard and self-love and family stuff. But I like going back to what you said about like John and partnership and that like instead of dating and like, because if you're by yourself and everything's fucking great, like I want someone to feel confident by themselves. Totally. I've thought about that all the time. I was like, because like I was so fucked up sometimes. I was like, I'm okay being by myself. Yeah. But I said to Emma, the example I gave her, I was like, if I become 8 out of 10, because I feel like no one's ever 10 out of 10. Yeah. Well, the goalpost always moves too, right? So. Yeah. So I was like, if I become my best 8 out of 10, I was like, you become your best 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. I said, then by natural, we're going to become 20 out of 10. I said, and then it's like, when you're your best self and I'm my best self, I was like, we'll have a world that is 120% of what we're actually capable of doing. But when you're by yourself and not being honest with yourself, you don't really get access to 80 to 90% of that. Yeah. But until you give yourself the allocated time to find your self-love, that's when everything just starts coming to you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people put so much emphasis on finding somebody, and, you know, if you're single, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Like, I think people get so hard on themselves, like, oh, am I looking the wrong avenue? Like, what's wrong with me? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you might just need to give yourself some time to figure out who you are, to actually find out who you're going to click with. Because the person that you're with when you're 18 might not be the person you end up with when you're 25 or when you're 30 or when you're 35. Now, my sister and her husband met each other when they were 19, but they were both very mature, and they've absolutely grown with each other. But I was single until I was 26. I literally dated nobody until I was 26. And then I found my partner. And it just, I mean, I very much had a huge wall up. He broke down the wall, thank God.
Small things that just like break a brick.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck are you?
I think he had a bunch of bricks that he was trying to break, but
it's just like the incremental over the time.
Yeah. And thankfully we were friends first, which I think made a huge difference for me.
Same with the EQI. Like you were allowed to punch me in my face because I trusted you.
Yes, it has to be trust there, which is so important.
And he punched you in the face, and you were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And then he was like, "I love you."
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, okay."
Not actually punch me in the face. But
yeah.
No, but it's for the people out there that think that, I'm just trying to say, like, it's awesome. You got to be good with yourself first before you can get in a relationship that's actually going to work. Because if you're not okay, you're going to get in a relationship that's probably not okay. And then it's just a mess after that.
If you don't know what you want, you're not going to find something you don't.
Correct. Very correct.
That's just it.
I was just bringing up your assessment is what I was doing.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about all this stuff because I know a lot of people are going to take a lot of takeaways. And I think a lot of people, our eyes are going to open to the validity of everything I'm talking about now. Like, I'm not worried about people trusting my words or what I'm saying and stuff, because if you trust me, the people that talk to me, they know I'm real. Yeah. People that don't, they can sit what they're doing. But I like this because it's factual. Yep. And we can actually, like, say whatever you say. Yeah. Because I know you'll probably have a lot more specific examples, but I don't know if you want to take it away, or I'll just announce my top 3 or 4.
Well, I mean, usually how I started is, we go through it. I give you a couple minutes. Well, I send you the assessment first, right? Yeah. So I sent it to you probably an hour or two before we met. I don't want to send it too far in advance because then people start going down a really deep hole of what they start Googling. So I probably sent it to you an hour before. You had time to look through the definitions. And then basically what I say to open up with is, like, what do you notice? What's standing out to you? Where do you want to start this conversation? Because people usually have an idea before we even get into it.
Let's start off with the 3 highest, and we can go to the 3 lowest.
Okay. So what stands out to you with your highest ones?
Well, we talked already about this one. Stress tolerance.
Yep.
Coping with stressful situations.
Yep.
I think this is a big blessing, honestly, because life is stressful.
Yep.
And I just feel like I'm like that. My stress tolerance, I looked at my life, and I was actually thankful for everything I've been through. Because this allowed me to do what I'm doing now. Like, we're in my apartment, like, mine and Emma's apartments. Like, I bought everything in here. Like, it's a ballsy move. Yeah. So, like, I was stressed the fuck out the entire time. Like, I was originally trying to do this in August. Yeah. But then, like, other things happened, and, like, obviously I had insecurities I had to work on and stuff. But yeah, I think that one made the most sense. Okay. And then the second one is emotional self-awareness. Understanding own emotions. This is one that it's funny because I agree with it, but I don't.
Okay. Why do you agree with it first?
Because I'm very in tune with myself.
Okay. So why do you disagree with it?
Because I don't think you can tell me I have a high self-awareness with my emotions if I don't understand all my emotions. That's the only question. Because this is saying I have a high score with the emotions that I understand. But I didn't learn about love until after. Yeah. So it's like there's probably several emotions that I didn't even understand. Before this, I only knew anger and a few other small ones.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Remember, you took this in 2018. Yeah. So when you scored yourself that you were aware of your emotions, you probably were actually aware of the 6 emotions that you thought you had. Now, your emotional vocabulary is probably way advanced from what it is. You'd probably score yourself a lot lower now. Now that you know all of the emotions that you go through in the run of a day, you'd probably be like, actually, you know what? I still need more time to be aware of what's happening.
You're completely right, because like I'm judging it as if I knew what I knew now.
Yeah, this was 2018. How old were you at this point? 26? 27? 25?
27 now.
24.
Yeah, 24. So, oh, fuck, yeah, this would have been in a deep end.
This is in a deep end. The one thing I'll say, the thing that you and I worked the most on was the first. So to give people an idea, there's 5 main they're called composites, but there's 5 main realms that we talk about. The first one is self-perception. So it's all about how you perceive yourself. The second one's self-expression, so how you express yourself to other people. Third is interpersonal, how you maintain, build relationships. Decision-making, and stress tolerance and stress management. Okay? So those are kind of the 5 main titles that we talk about. Then each one of those 5 have 3 kind of breakdowns or sub-skills is what we call them, but there's specific skill sets that you work within them. And we talked about the self-perception realm, specifically self-regard. So respecting oneself, confidence, knowing who you are. So that's where you and I started your journey. Is knowing, I think the biggest thing for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of our initial conversations were talking about how you did grow up and recognizing that that wasn't your fault and realizing that that doesn't have to be your future. And for you, I don't know, maybe that was really difficult to hear. I don't know. I think I might have probably pushed you a little bit with saying stop talking about your past, because I think you talked about it a lot when we initially went through it, which is not a bad thing. No. I needed to know who you were, but I didn't want you to use an excuse of it either.
No, you're completely right. And the reason why I would push everything back and like always talk about my family was because the way I grew up, nobody else grew up. And I've realized that everybody in my community had issues similar to mine. So when I turned 17 and went to college, it was like every day you were just getting knocked down a peg. Like you went from, because the thing about growing up is like, I mean, your area might have been a little different, but for the most part, up until grade 10, you were with the same individuals. For the most part, you like grade primary to grade 6, your same friends. Grade 7 to grade 9, same friends. Maybe switch junior high, but for the most part, same community. But then grade 10 and especially university, you see everybody. You see people that got Range Rovers in grade 10. And then I was like, I had to fight for change. And I was maybe wearing the same shirt twice. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's when you really started getting exposed to different exposures of life. And I think until I was 23, 24, I just I felt like I was just beat by the world. And I just put myself in the box that every time I opened my mouth, it was easier for me to explain my situation of why I'm acting the way I am, because 90% of people didn't understand it because they were spoon-fed more than I was. But I'm not saying it's bad. That's a different conversation. I probably shouldn't have said it that way, but I'm still working on it. But I was just bruised and battered from the world. So I was like, fine, I'll just throw myself under the bus. But hey, like I watched, I almost said it, but I don't want to say it now, but X, Y, and Z happened to me as a kid. This is why I'm being this way. Now you understand. Let's be friends. And then most times it worked. Most times they're like, I find people that came from very stable backgrounds didn't understand that a lot, and I got a lot of oppression from those guys. They're like, oh, what the fuck your issue type shit. But that's what it would have been. And then me being bruised and battered by the world, and you being so genuine with how you wanted to do it, and us having a relationship beforehand, you got behind enemy lines. So you were allowed to say what you said. Whereas I may have heard it before, but I was just like, fuck, like, you know what, the validity behind it wasn't true. I was like, whatever, you're just a prick. But like you're like, like that's what I mean. Like I was hyped up. Like I was even supposed to record a couple episodes last weekend, but I got busy, and like I even was joking with Emma. I was hyped that you're coming on for one of the first episodes, because this is what started it all. And there's like a bunch of conversations that me and you've had personally that you don't even know that actually changed my life. Like well, you do know some of them, but like the one, like you saying that. Like the 2 things that from this specifically we're talking about that you said that were like literally changed my life was, one was like why are you identifying with that? You're like, why do you feel the need? And I just never thought of it, because no one, and this is what made me, this is why I got the fire to change, is me as a man, not one other guy, which I lost a lot of respect for a lot of guys, put me aside and was like, dude, are you okay? Like, look, you're acting a little irrational sometimes. And even like working, because I'm a networker, like I'm a natural born, like I'll go and talk to people I like to talk, and not one person ever sat me aside, was like, yo. And I remember even saying to my mom, she was like, you'd be walking around pissed off. And I was like, why is no one fucking saying that to me? And it was like, you were the only, I know family's different on that subject, but like you were the only one that like, I guess like one, I 110% were listening to. And 2, that actually said it. And I was like, holy shit. And then that's why I was like, and then obviously now after I understand that, that's why I have the revelation to make the change I went to. How many people that are just going to listen to what I just said and what you just said about how, like maybe I heard that 100 times. But you told me that once in that instance at Starbucks.
Yeah.
When my guards were down, literally.
Yeah.
And it made the world of a difference.
Yeah, it's great.
And yeah.
That's awesome. When you're coaching, it's very nice of you to say, because I've definitely left. I put a lot of heart into sessions when I coach people, because I want them to get a lot out of it. I think it's amazing. Mm-hmm. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's people that just don't care, and it sucks. Mm-hmm. Or I didn't do a good job, which also sucks. But I'm just glad that. And it probably wasn't even anything I said. It was probably just a question or something that I asked you. But I'm glad that it hit home. Like,
it's just like the genuine care for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is what it is. And like that's just it, period.
Yeah.
You gave a fuck in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's what nobody gets from anybody in this world.
Yeah.
And like,
so that was the moment that you started on this journey.
No, I would say that was the moment where I knew I had a direction.
Gotcha.
I would say I what's weird, this analogy just popped in my head. I felt like I was under ice, clawing at the ice, trying to get out. Mm-hmm. My whole life.
Yeah, the ice just needed to melt.
And I was drowning.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say it would melt, because I guess you could say melt, because like, no, I can't even say melt, because melt means that something else did it.
Yeah.
That's not how it
well,
went. You broke the ice, and then you're like, you can swim through here, or you can keep fucking clawing there.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fine, I'll fucking swim that way.
Yeah.
And then, so I think that's what it really, because I remember I got the books here somewhere, like over there. I picked up 3 to 4 books.
Yeah.
And then I read them, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking see you in 6 months.
Yeah.
And
well, people just need to recognize that they have potential sometimes too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yes, you were from a different background.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Sometimes people just have potential that they don't know how to unleash.
That's 100% what it is.
You just figured out your potential at that time, which is super exciting.
Yeah. It's crazy, because everything I'm doing now is from this.
Yeah.
Like, let's go to the second one. Interpersonal relationships was my second lowest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think we skipped the third biggest one, but who cares? My second lowest was interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. So why do you think that was low for you at that time?
Because it's completely fucking right. I had no satisfying relationships because I never was shown one in my entire life.
You know, it's really funny too. If you go to the page, page 10. So for the people that are listening, the one thing that we look at is when we talk about a skill that you want to work on, there's always
I love that
3 other skills that are kind of pulling at it. Now, all of them pull at each other, but there's 3 specifically that are pulled on. And the one that's pulling the most for you with interpersonal relationships is your high level of independence. Mm-hmm. So why do you think that your independence maybe overshadows your interpersonal relationships?
The struggle from growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a wholeheartedly believe that, like, in and out of foster care from like 1 and 3. There's a lot of like intern shit with that I don't understand, but like in and out of foster care 3, I was beat pretty bad I don't even remember. I know I was beat really bad and hospitalized before I was a year old. Mm-hmm. And then I was like beaten like between 1 and 5. So I was always just kind of like felt alone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I always just had the persona. And then I was adopted my grandmother. Like, that was a struggle in its own. That I'll release a little bit more about that later. But I was just always alone. Growing up, my grandmother was a bubble wrap kid.
Yeah.
So I was just allowed to sit in the house and draw. I wasn't allowed outside. And, so I just always created that sense of just alone and independence. But it's crazy. I didn't realize until COVID, when we were sitting in the house all the time, me and Emma were doing, like, digging our mental and trying to figure some shit out. Mm-hmm. I created a false sense of... It was crazy. Like, I don't want to say masculinity, but almost this weird ego or weird persona mm-hmm. that I confided into myself, that I convinced myself wasn't me. Mm-hmm. That when I removed that barrier, I became confident. Mm-hmm. And since that day, I've not been confident.
Yeah, I think that happens for a lot of people, mm-hmm. sadly. And I don't think that they recognize that they have a different coat on until somebody takes it off.
And I think my biggest blessing about my life is that I went through a lot of shit. Mm. But there's a lot of shit that I didn't go through that a lot of other people did. Yeah. And, like, I'm just going to say it for lack of explanation, but I grew up without a mother or a father. Mm. That's how I felt. And so a lot of people did grow up with their mother. A lot of people did grow up with their father. Yeah. A lot of people grew up with one or the other. A lot of people grew up with a lot of uncles, a lot of aunts, a lot of this. But then in terms comes with these big families, comes with a lot of fucking abuse. Yeah. So I was like, by the time I was 23... And I was like, because my whole life you're just sitting there, like, going back to interpersonal relationships and independence, like, you're looking for these mutually satisfying relationships. Like you said, like, we only got happy with our partners because we found a partner. Yeah. Every other time it's like dating, where it's like, what can I get out of you? What can you get out of me? Type shit.
Very transactional. Yeah.
And where I grew up, a lot of transaction business, friendships. Yeah. For lack of explanation. So and a lot of manipulation. And that's kind of a little different tangent. But what I'm saying is, like, all the kids that I grew up with that I was like, oh, man, I wish I had a fucking mother.
Yeah.
I wish I had your dad. Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors, dad was beating the shit out of the son. Behind closed doors, like, uncles were doing stuff to the kid. Like, you know what I mean? Behind closed doors, grandparents were... And I was like, I'm blessed to be alone and understand the way I do because I can help those individuals. I'm fortunate that, like, I just want to stop crying about my life. Honestly, like, I was just like, who am I to sit here and cry about being alone and not having a mom and a dad? I have a mom. Don't get me wrong. Like me and my mom have worked insanely on a relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm happy as fuck. Like, I'm trying to call her mom now and all this other stuff. Like, it's a great fucking thing. So we're having a happy ass life.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing was, like, who am I to judge my life on me when I have the opportunity to just change my mindset without those visuals?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, those people that were abused and were this, were that. Like, I was hit and did a few things, but like, I know a guy that I'm working with, and I won't share too much of his story, but for like probably like 6-7 years, every single day he was attacked. Like, just like physically beat the fuck up until he learned how to cope or defend himself. And it's like, who am I to bitch about being bubble wrapped in a room with a couple pencils?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, sure, like whatever will happen, but I didn't go through that.
Yeah.
So now I can just deal with my depression and my anxiety and what I understand.
Yeah.
But I don't have those visuals.
Yeah.
Those reoccurring things. So that's when I really started looking at my life as a blessing, because I've always been independent.
Yeah.
But I think, like, the area I grew up in, which is what I want to make a note on, and these, I'm just going to say poverty communities.
Yeah.
Any of these poverty communities, there is no mutually satisfying relationships.
Right.
There's no, I don't want to say that, and there's no.
Well, you got to look out for you.
There's exactly right.
Yeah.
Like, it's a dog-eat-dog world in there, and there's a lot of like, and the ones that are fucking great, the great moms and dads that like get together and care for their kids are bullied because they don't have much. So it's like, and then turns their kid into a little demon because he's pissed off at the world. But the craziest thing is that these communities there's no love in these communities, and that's when I really started realizing, because like interpersonal relationships, I didn't know how to hang with someone because from 4 years old until 17, we would learn how to do transactional relationships. It was like, if we're hanging out, like, why are we hanging out?
Yeah.
And that's how it was. And it's like, you kind of had your group of people you hung out with.
Yeah.
And I got my boys. I got Julian, I got Jeff, and I got Jared. They're my boys until the day I die. They know that. But we were in the mud. That's where, you know what I mean? We're there all together. And then, like, every other relationship after that, it was like almost like dating them. You know what I mean? It's almost like a relationship, like a real relationship. You're like, hey, I have boundaries with you, and you have boundaries with me. And then you just realize that's just maturity, and that the life's just fucked up, and that community just never got love.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, I mean, for you, it's recognizing that, yeah, you wanted to work on your relationships. But again, that flip side, what's tugging on you is your high level of independence. And again, I'm not trying to lower your score of independence. I'm not trying to do that because it's a strength of yours.
No.
But it's recognizing, okay, I'm very good at this. Yeah. It's probably blocking me from letting people in. But again, that's where your self-regard came in. We needed to make you good with you first. Yeah. Which then allowed you maybe to lower or scale back that independence a little bit to be able to find somebody like Emma, put the effort into it, and then you're able to learn how to build relationships and maintain them. Building relationships is really tough. Maintaining relationships is really, really tough.
It's harder. It's a lot harder.
It can be both. It's really, really tough. True. The one thing, though, that I'll say, and I don't know if you've listened to this podcast before, but, and I know I said this with Tony Robbins, but some people like Joe Rogan, some people don't. I'm not trying to talk about Joe Rogan. But he interviewed Jewel. I don't know if you know Jewel at all. She was a really big singer in the 90s. I grew up in the 90s, loved Jewel.
Yeah, but we were 89, weren't you? 91?
I was 90.
Yeah, what was that?
Whatever. She's awesome. Her backstory, so she grew up in a homestead in Alaska. So like a cabin with no running water, no nothing. Homeless when she was 15.
Christ.
Really, really bad upbringing, like really, really freaking bad. And she's so intelligent to talk about. She actually talks about this a lot, not the actual assessment, but she talks about emotional intelligence the whole time. And she talks about how she knew when she was like 17, 18, she was shoplifting a lot because she didn't have any money. She was living in her car. She was homeless. But she's like, why am I doing this? So she used to follow herself for 2 weeks and literally just write down anytime her hands did anything. She was smart enough at 17, 18 to recognize, okay, my actions are doing something here.
That's a very unique challenge.
Really cool, right? So anyway, she wrote it down, and she recognized, like, I can go down this road or I can make a decision and go down this road.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's a multi-millionaire now. She signed the biggest record deal with Sony and a back-end deal ever.
And during those times, and as a female.
And it's because
based on the earlier conversation.
Right? And it was because she just made a decision that she recognized that she was going down a route she didn't want to. Mm-hmm. She was talking to herself in not good ways, and her actions were being dictated by that. But she never was like, she knew she grew up in a bad background, but she didn't want to use that as an excuse because she knew she could get out of it. Uh-huh. She knew she could get out of it. She just didn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
But she did. And I think that was for you too, is you were getting out of it. You had a job, you were making money, you were doing the thing at that point.
And that's what blew my mind. Because like when I was making money, I stopped getting GST, mm-hmm. which to many people, like, why are you even talking about that?
Yeah.
But I was making more than the average Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how can I be sitting here with this much debt, this broke, making more than the average Canadian? But look how fucking bad everyone is, like suffering. And that played a big toll on my head because like you go from shoplifting at 17 because like you hear the rap songs, like if you don't got food on the table, you go and get it.
Yeah.
Like that's real.
Yeah.
People don't realize how real this is. And that's why I'm happy to be talking about it because it's funny with Julian, whenever he listens to this, he'll fucking start laughing when he hears this part, but his $5 is my $5. My $5 is his $5. It was, and that's all we had. But to jump back into this, the thing that makes me laugh about this the most is that there's a I'm gonna read it for the people that are watching. Is it says to reduce your independence and increase your interpersonal relationship because like you said, you don't want me to get rid of my independence. You're not like you don't.
No, we might just need to scale that.
Yeah, you don't want to market it as saying you don't need to be as independent, but work on your insecurities.
Yeah.
But the note it says recognize that there are situations where collaboration can be advantageous. Yeah. Advantageous, whatever the hell that word is.
It's a tough word.
I understand it, though.
Yeah.
If you want to pronounce it so anyone
advantageous,
can hear it.
I think.
You said you think, too.
Keep going.
Over here, I'm insecure in my own house.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was crazy because I can't help it but think of Emma. And it's funny because like this podcast is going to turn it, every episode is going to turn this shot on her out because I think it was very recently, I don't want to share it, but it was very recently within the last little bit of, I'm going to let people say if it's a few days, few months, few years, we'll let people figure it out. But
yeah,
I remember I put my hands up like that. I was like, what else do you want? I was like, I have absolutely everything you need to be happy right now. Mm-hmm. I was like, but you're not fucking happy. So I was like offended. And it wasn't even, I don't know, it was funny because like I wasn't offended that it wasn't her that wasn't happy, but she kept coming to me. And I was like, what do you want? Because I was getting mad that she's coming to me because I'm independent as fuck. Yeah. I did everything I thought we were supposed to do. So this is my time now. What are you doing? Go do your own thing in the house. And she just looked at me and she said, I can't even remember what she said to me, but my mentality, she took and removed it and like flipped it upside down, threw it back in my head. Yeah. With 3 lines, she said it. One was like, she said, what the fuck is wrong with you? Do you not understand that I'm sitting here for you, not for what you're bringing me? She said something like that. But then she said the third thing that really did it was like, because my biggest insecurity with her was why? Yeah. Why me? I was so bruised, so battered, so broken, been through, like, it'll come out over the next little bit. And, like, I want her to start her own podcast, too, for whatever she wants to do. But there was, I just projected a lot of my insecurities onto her. Mm. And one thing she said to me was, like, because, like, I would just remember going off on her, being like, me growing up the way I did, you growing up the way you did, statistically speaking, like, why the fuck you choosing me? Mm-hmm. So in my brain, I created these stories, like, and it's only a matter of time. Yeah. I mean, what are you using me for? Yeah. Because I know I'm a hustler. I know I go, like, everything I got in here, like, I paid for it, it's good, we're done. And I know a lot of people don't know how to do that stuff. And I don't even know how to do it. Yeah. I just naturally do it. So I started looking at business, interpersonal relationships. I started looking, like, where's the business that she wants? Yeah. And she straight up said to me, she goes, you just don't deserve to feel like that. And she's like, and I just love you. Yeah. That just changed it.
It's huge.
And I started just fucking bawling my eyes out.
Yeah, it just gave me goosebumps, actually.
Yeah, literally. I just started bawling my eyes out. And I was just like, and still to this day. Yeah. Like, it's just like something.
But you've always had transactional You've always had transactional relationships. So for you, it was a huge change.
Literally. And it was like.
It's almost like Emma's your coach sometimes.
100%. 1,000%. Every day she's my coach. I'm just like, because I don't like, she maintains me. Mm-hmm. I'll always be off the rocker. Yeah. Yeah. I'd always be off the rocker. I would sit here, like, if it wasn't for her, I'd have 6 other guests today. Yeah. And I'd be like midnight, eyes bloodshot, crying tomorrow, wondering why I'm crying, but still trying to do 75 episodes. Yeah. Like, she just, it's funny because like going back to the partner and stuff like that, like, you look for it, you don't find it, but if you don't look for it, you get it. And I think that's the revelation that people need to understand, is that when you love yourself, you'll get love back.
Yeah.
And I think when you get love back, that's when it makes sense, because the whole relationship thing with people and yourself is like, who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
People have that question until the day they die. Who am I to say this? Or
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? And then the more, I feel like the more arrogance and more aggression you use, it just exposes you from how more insecure you are with that subject.
Yeah, well, I think it's also easy to say, poor me. Like, I remember, you know, I had a great upbringing. My parents were fantastic. Got a great relationship with my family. And then my mom got sick and she passed away. And we've had like 3 or 4 things kind of happen back to back to back that it's been a kind of a tough, you know, 3 or 4 years. But like, for people who were, I remember just being at the funeral and somebody said to me, everything happens for a reason. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, I hate to tell, like, no, it doesn't.
Like, you can't say that in
like,
that
have
moment.
you lost somebody that close to you that you can honestly say to yourself, everything happens for a reason? Like, I just don't believe that. I believe that whatever happens to you, you do have a quick decision of how you react to it. I do believe that. Absolutely. And, I just think, like, what happened to my mom, I can't change, sadly. It is what it is. It happened. It sucks. Absolutely sucks. But what I did after that is on me.
Yeah.
Like, what I do after that is completely on me. And what you did out of, again, you can't change what happened to you before, but you absolutely can change your reaction from it. Like, you could now change your decisions moving forward, which I think a lot of people get caught up in the poor me, poor me, poor me. And listen, you got to, especially when there is something like depression or anxiety that are there, you have to get help. Like, you have to get professional help to be able to uncover that. But if you're just simply getting yourself into a mind frame that it's poor me, you got to do something about that, because you're only going to go further into the poor me. Cause
it's funny, because when you say that, like, I used to be like that. Like, poor me. Like,
it's easy. It's an easy thing to do.
I think one thing that, like, for anyone listening to get out of that is I started looking at as many different analogies of life is fair and why. Yeah. And I can't remember what quote it was, but after jamming about 400 pages of those in your brain, when you have poor me, your brain can kind of figure out how to get out of it, which is great. Yeah. Which is great about education. It's like you just learn it and you got it and you just keep up on it. But there's a couple of them that I said that it was like one video I watched was really intense, and it was some guy and he was just yelling and he was like, no one gives a fuck about what you've been through. And it's actually a song I listen to all the time. Actually, I listen to dark rap. Like, I just have to. Like, literally, Emma will come home and be like, oh, fuck, he's selling coke. Yeah. Like, oh, shit. And there's one song that I have a guy that I love, like King Von. Like, people were like, who the fuck is this guy? They'll listen to him and they'll be like, oh, god damn it. Like, he definitely is aggressive. Yeah. But he has a song, and it's called How It Go? And How Does It Go? And it's a premise of it is entirely about how he's in jail. And he's like, he has one line in it that really changed the way I felt about the whole poor me thing. And it's funny, he actually died a year ago, a couple of days ago. And I was really upset. Like, I was the first rapper that when he died, I was like, I got cold chills now. I don't know what it is about him. Yeah. But every single one of his songs, and it's like, I'm just going to let other people go listen to his music and then hopefully not judge me. But I just, like, you could just hear it in his voice that he's, like, crying in his aggression. Yeah. And that's what I love about it, because guys as men, the more aggressive a guy is, I just think he's crying. Yeah. Like, you just need a hug. Yeah. But the quote was like, or not the quote, but the line is no one gives a fuck about what you're going through. He goes, all of us are going through the exact same fucking thing. Then he has like another line after it when it's like just like, get the fuck up, go handle your business type shit. Yeah. And it's just like, maybe think about it, because it's like, me. I could say poor me, because look at you, like, you had da-da-da-da-da. But, like, you lost your mom. My mom's across the bridge. Yeah. Like there's small things you could do, an incremental thing, like incremental mind shifts. Yeah. To kind of help yourself get out of it, because the grass is always greener on every situation. Totally. Like, every single situation, the grass is always greener.
The one thing, though, that I would argue with that is the grass is greener. However, the grass is not always green at the beginning. Yes. And a lot of people will not put in the time or the failures to try and get out of to get into the greener grass.
Yeah, I'll leave it on that, because I was ranting. So I'll leave it in.
If I can just say, though, for people to kind of understand just with why we're talking about interpersonal relationships with independence, one of the 2 biggest skills that I work on, I'm going to talk specifically work-related, is empathy paired with assertiveness. So to give an example is, if somebody's really high in empathy but low in assertiveness, I might be having to coach them around they're getting walked over as a manager, or people think they're like they don't have a backbone, so on and so forth. But then on the flip side, you get people that are very high in assertiveness and low in empathy, where it's like, oh man, I really got to work on, I'm coming off like an asshole, or I'm really struggling with, building the relationship while trying to, get people to do what I want to do. So for people out there that are like, why are you talking about balancing? It's so important. It's so, so important. And again, what I said before with me, my stress tolerance is really high, but my emotional expression is really low. So I don't get very high or very low, but that really makes it difficult for me to express to people that are around me how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So for people that want to do this assessment or Google stuff on EQI, which they absolutely can as well, is just recognize that your strengths are your strengths for a reason. We're not trying to downplay them, but there might be times where you potentially need to scale back a strength to be able to work on a weakness.
Because obviously it's been an hour and a half, we'll wrap up. But
I was just going to say, if I can end for people, like if you're going to start anywhere with emotional intelligence, number one, Google it, try and find some stuff out about it. You can write me, whatever you need to do. But there's the four foundations. First and foremost, number one is sleep. Yeah. You have to be sleeping.
That's a big one.
Because your emotions will go haywire if you're not sleeping enough. So the adage that I'll sleep later, I'm just going to grind, it really hurts you when it comes to your emotional intelligence. It hurts with your decision making. It hurts with your stress management. Number one is sleep. Number two is stress. Mm-hmm. If you have an acute stress, like a quick stress, that's probably something that we can work on in this. But if you have a chronic burden or a chronic stress, you need to pause. Mm-hmm. And you need to go figure that out.
Yeah.
So sleep, stress, alcohol. Alcohol really, really messes up your emotions. Well, because it's not only alcohol the night of, it's when you're hungover the next day.
Yeah.
You go off, you're just all over the place. So sleep, stress, alcohol, and caffeine. You do gotta, not that I'm telling people that if you're tired not to drink coffee, it's not that. But if you're hyped, just recognize that your emotional capacity limits, because you just got to be careful with how much caffeine that you're drinking, and recognizing that if you drank a lot of caffeine because you got to go to work and you're tired, that's fine. But the way that you react might not be the normal way that you react. So those four things are foundational.
With caffeine, it's almost like your hand's already on the button to press fight, flight, or run.
Exactly. Like you're jazzed and you're going to stay jazzed.
It's like, which one am I going to go? It's like whack-a-mole. You don't know which one you're going to hit. But honestly, that's just it. We'll just wrap it up there because, you definitely do got to go see little Ben.
Yes, but, I do have child responsibilities.
I just got a few questions I want to ask
you. Of course.
To kind of get off all of the... let's just have a little... I want to start something.
Okay.
So I figure out how to make it fun.
Okay.
But first and foremost, thanks for going over the EQI.
I love it. It's great.
Definitely jump into more of that because a lot of good fucking content for a lot of people that can help. And this is the reason why I'm alive. One of the big reasons why I'm alive.
It's
and I just
great.
Thank the fuck out of you for doing it.
Yeah.
But I got 1, 2, 3... 5 questions that are very easy.
Is this like rapid questions?
It doesn't have to be rapid, but it's just it's completely irrelevant for everything we're doing.
Okay.
But it's just for anyone listening that can compare their answers to the questions to yours.
Sure.
And then we won't even talk about it. We're just going to take it away. And then we're done. We'll wrap it up.
Okay.
How do you define your success?
How do I define my success?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's changed huge over the last year for me. Honestly, it just comes down to, am I happy and are the relationships that I have around me good? I'm not dictating it by money, job title, any of that. Things of, at the end of the day, if you're happy and the people around you have great relationships with, that to me is successful.
Best advice you have ever received?
Best advice I ever received.
I know it's a big one, so I know there's a lot of it, but even if it's just one of those... The ones that you're just like, oh, fuck, and you think about it. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah. There'd be a couple. Number one would be you can't change what happens to you. You can only change how you react to it. My mom said that to me when she was sick. Yeah, when she was sick. So that was a huge one.
That's powerful, though.
That was a really, really powerful one.
Can you say it again?
You can't change what happens to you. You can only change how you react to it.
So
that was a huge one. People hate this quote, hate it. and I want you to know that the quote, I probably don't like it either. It's called Fake It Till You Make It. Our very, very executive person in our company said that to me. And I don't actually agree with it. the fake it till you make it part, but I think that what she was trying to get out of me, because I was young, I had just moved into a role that I was the youngest person by 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
That was that imposter syndrome where she was basically just telling me to suck it up and you can do it. Like, don't put your age or your whatever that you're trying to.
Well, I couldn't agree more, because it's kind of like...
do it, because you have the potential to do it, so just do it, is basically what she was trying to tell me.
Third question.
Okay.
This is my favorite question, I think. Might be one of mine. What does self-love mean to you?
Self-love.
Mm-hmm. To remove any stigmas.
Yeah, I think for me, especially going through EQI, self-love to me is really just knowing who you are. I think it's important to know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and most importantly, you need to be okay with them. You can work on your weaknesses, yes. You can glorify your strengths, yes. But you gotta be okay with them, because that's the only way that you move the needle.
That's powerful stuff. I like the first one you said, when you just gotta be okay with yourself.
You gotta be okay with yourself.
Yeah.
This is what you get with me. So I gotta be okay with it.
No, 100%. No, that's great. If you could give yourself a piece of advice at the age of 20, what would it be?
A couple things. Number one, you have potential, use it. And number two, you can be patient too. Like, I find when I was young, I was always looking for like the next promotion, the next this, the next that. But it's okay to be patient and get really, really good at what you're currently doing. Get really, really strong at it, really, really confident, so that when you do move up or you take the next avenue or you take the next direction, you're only better when you go to that part. So number one, you got potential, use it. Number two, it's okay to be patient too.
Those are really good fucking ones. Those are really good ones. Shit. That's great. No, seriously, I wasn't even thinking about anything on that positive. I was like, don't stress.
Well, yeah, and don't be stupid. Like, I don't know. You're going to be stupid.
I guess your answer is different. You have a child now, so you're like, what would I tell Ben? What would I tell Ben?
Don't drink too much.
Yeah. What do you want to leave behind after your time? 1, for yourself. 2, for your family.
Yeah.
And 3, the world.
Oh my God. Well,
That's a
I
great
am
one to
only
end on.
31, so I hope I don't have to think about this for a while. Honestly, for me, for myself, I think if I can just live in a state of happy, I'll be pumped. Like, if I can, I know there's going to be ups and downs. I know there's going to be winding roads, but if I can intentionally be happy, that'll be awesome.
That's powerful.
For what was it? For
your family.
For my family.
Ben and John.
I just hope that, I think this is for everybody, and whether you have kids or not, you don't have to have kids, but I just hope that I set up the next generation to think that they can do stuff. Like, I don't want them to limit themselves. And listen, there's parameters, there's things like, I don't think I'm ever going to be as rich as Elon Musk, and that's totally fine. But I think it's just, know that you have potential, and it's really exciting when you can start to use it. So I would just, and be okay to be pushed and challenged, because I think people get really uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, but it's okay to challenge yourself and challenge others. So that would be what I would say to other people.
And the world?
The world, I just hope that people, if anybody listens to this, or if anybody I meet, I hope they remember how I make them feel. That's all. I just hope that
that's powerful stuff. That's really,
I don't think they'll ever remember what I say, which is totally fine, but I just hope that they are
remember
like, Nicole, she made me feel good, is all I would hope.
Well, in my opinion, I think you're going to crush all 3 of those.
Oh,
so
thank you.
You do, because you like, I don't, you make a more, like, a big impact on a lot of people. I don't think you just don't know that.
I appreciate that.
But
you made a big impact on me too, so.